What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards Comics here. Another month, another set of Gemrate data. And today, I want to focus more on the importance of these numbers going forward, given the recent acquisition of SGC by collectors. Because we have these numbers and a history of these numbers now, thanks to Gemrate, it paints us a picture and is going to be able to kind of give us a preview of what could possibly be happening. Let's just run down the surface numbers. I also have the tag numbers and the smaller company numbers I'll tack on to the end of this video. PSA 1.25 million. That's basically their cap. CGC 164,000. Small drop. That's mostly pretty much all TCG cards. We'll talk about that in a second. SGC 146,000. That is also around their cap, and that is going to be the interesting number to discuss here in a minute. Beckett up slightly at 66,000. I will say just some kind of general notes here. SGC still is backlogged a little bit. I have multiple reports of orders taking upwards of a month instead of their whole 10-day thing. PSA, their inbound seems to be running a little slow, but the back end is running fast. I've mentioned this on a couple different videos. The order that I sent at the tail end of January was checked in or received by PSA like February 4th or 5th. I don't have the exact dates in front of me. And I will have the cards back this week. In fact, by the time you see this video, I may already have the cards back. I'm not sure when this is going to go up yet. There's a lot of other irons in the fires. Videos are getting pushed around left and right. But I will have my PSA order that arrived in early February completed and back in my hands in early March. So basically right around a month turnaround time before PSA continues. Now, I didn't do a video on it because they kind of sucked. PSA did announce new special pricing, mostly for higher end stuff and some vintage. Nothing really that affects the masses. I'm assuming they are going to use March as a little bit of a catch-up month because the inbound still is running a little bit slow. It's taking about a week or so. At least on my last, I sent a baseball special order in. It took about a week to get checked into the system before the raw images showed up. So just kind of keep all that stuff in mind, just some general stuff there. Let's look into some of the individual categories, and then we'll circle back to this top level. Sports, 730,000 almost by PSA. That's a slight increase. SGC, a slight drop at 130,000. Beckett at 35,000, a slight increase, estimate, or around 35,000. CGC, yikes. 12,000 in sports cards. That's a 40% drop off. CGC continues to really struggle in the sports card space to gain traction. We will see if the never PSA, never collectors universe, I don't want to give Nat Turner a penny of my money people now look to CGC as a viable alternative. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but there is maybe a little area of opportunity here for CGC to grab a little bit of that never PSA market share. On the TCG side of things, PSA down slightly at just over 500,000. CGC actually down slightly at 150,000. Still a monster TCG. They just do a ton of TCG business. So as a grading company in total, they are doing good. As a sports card grading company, the struggle seems to be real. Beckett 32,000 and SGC, they lost a little bit in sports cards, but gained it in Pokemon, up 8% in Pikachu's. Let's go back to this top level. Watching these numbers, and it's probably going to take a few months. SGC still has that little bit of backlog they have to work through. We know that SGC caps out at around 150,000 cards, give or take 5% either way. The reason we know that is because generally speaking, they don't run a backlog. They clear cards out. People send their orders in within a week or two. They get them back. So now we know orders are running slower. So we have a pretty decent idea of where their cap figure is, and it's that 150K mark. We need to give them a little bit of time to kind of clear up and get back to turnaround times, getting back to normal. If, let's say, by April, we hear, oh, okay, cool, my orders to SGC are running normally again. That's going to be a telltale sign how quickly their orders get back to that 10-day mark that they were running at for the longest time. Because that's going to give us a direct insight into demand for their services. The other thing we'll be able to watch, and this will take a little bit longer, is do they stick to that 150K-ish number? If we get to May, June, July, heading towards the national, and that number is slipping, it's going to be 150K in February. Let's assume they're still working through the backlog in March. It's around 150K. And then let's assume as we move into April, May, they kind of clear it. If we see that number start to go, 150 to the 130s, to the 120s, to the 110s, if it starts creeping down, and I don't know how fast it will or it won't at all, maybe it'll stay strong at 150. But that's going to be a leading indicator of the masses' perception of this transaction. And that's going to play, in my opinion, could potentially play a critical role in what collectors ends up deciding to do, and what collectors universe, I should say, not collectors like the masses, what collectors universe tries to do or thinks about doing with SGC as a company. Now, I am in the camp of they will get folded in at some point in time. It'll probably take a while. And by a while, a few years. And if those numbers tail off as we move throughout the rest of 2024, I mean, if the numbers start to dip, why would collectors keep them around as a standalone company? If the numbers drop off, submissions drop off, they become less and less profitable, less and less reasons to keep hanging them around, more and more reasons just to slap a PSA label on it and turn it into a PSA grading office. So these Gemrate numbers are going to be very, very intriguing to watch. On the flip side of that, if CGC Sports starts getting a little bit of a bump up and SGC Sports gets a little bit of a decrease, you might be able to read into, hey, maybe some of that business is getting siphoned off over to them. SGC has very brand loyal customers, and I don't know what the percentage is, but boy, oh boy, it's time for people to put their money where their mouth is. A lot of people that use SGC are very adamant, never PSA, never Collectors Universe people. We're going to find out how much they really believe that, how much they really stand behind that, if that is actually true now that they are part of the evil empire. So once again, this is the importance. A lot of people ask, like, who cares about these numbers? This is the reason why we care about these numbers. One, it helps keep these companies honest. It shows weird fluctuations and stuff. But two, it gives us a history and a general idea of what these companies can output. And then it's a leading indicator of when things kind of start to go a little bit sideways. So the Gemrate numbers over the next few months from an SGC perspective are going to be very, very fascinating to watch. And these things kind of take on a whole different skew now when you kind of combine it mentally in my mind. When I was looking at this, specifically this one, the sports card side of things, my head was just automatically almost grouping these two numbers together as, collectors as a whole, collectors universe as a whole, just how much they literally dominate this category. We're going to look at the tag numbers and stuff in a second. And when you look at these numbers, one, look at how far behind Beckett and CGC are to the now combined, just PSA in general, but now the combined forces of PSA and SGC. You're talking about, what is that, 860,000 cards, give or take, just in sports. 860,000 cards. Beckett's at 34,000. CGC's at 12,000. That's wild. For perspective, I know like the tag bots like to get all fired up about this stuff, how they think they're the next greatest thing under the sun. Tag graded about 4,000 sports cards in the month of February. 4,000. The amount of how far behind those small grading companies are, and you could throw HGA, Arena Club, anyone into that mix, it's astronomical. It's absolutely astronomical how far behind those smaller companies specifically are. It's just crazy when you think about it. So those are the big boys. That's kind of where we sit. Like I said, I think this data is going to be very, very intriguing going forward. We'll see what PSA numbers look like since they're not really running anything crazy for a special, and they continue to churn and burn very, very quickly. On the TCG side of things, just to touch on some stuff, I still think a lot of this 151K. I think CGC is kind of taking a more, they've been doing a lot of work over at that show over in Asia, and I think they're generating a lot of TCG business specifically from that. And I almost wonder if CGC pivots to that more global style attack phase. PSA is doing that as well with their Japan offices and stuff, but it seems like CGC has had a lot of success with that Asia market by having a presence at that show. I think a lot of it's just the difficulty to grade for those people. So the fact that one of the big four, well, three, I don't like, it still breaks my brain on how to kind of refer to these now. I mean, they're two separate companies, PSA and SGC, so I guess we'll continue to refer to them as like that. Let's close looking at the small fries. Arena Club comes in at 10,000, slight drop off. Once again, I still have no idea how to wrap my mind around the Arena Club numbers because I don't think I've ever actually seen one of their slabs in person in my life. I think I would love to know the percentage of these Arena Club numbers that are, this is going to sound kind of weird, but like Arena Club grading with themselves specifically for their little slab pack things that they do, their repack product. I almost wonder how much of this number is coming from inside the house, for lack of a better term. HGA, they actually rose up a little bit to 1,400. Once again, when you look at these smaller graders and compare them to the big boys, the gap is so astronomical. It's absolutely insane. Let's talk about the one that everyone always fires up the comment section, the robots. Tag is sitting at a little over 18,000. That's a small increase from last month. Another asterisk, though, something weird is going on with their numbers. I have it pulled up. I have the Gemrate sent me the full breakdown. Sorry, this is kind of small. I'll see if I can zoom in on it a little bit. It'll probably get a little blurry. So Pokemon they did 18,000, almost 14,000 of that was in Pokemon cards. I don't understand. I don't know where these are going. I did a quick eBay search. Active listing for Pokemon tag. If you just search Pokemon and then, put the little, fill out the subheaders on the left and check graded cards and then check tag on the checkmark boxes, there are 47 at time of recording. There are 47 active listings for Pokemon tag slabbed cards and like 30 sold listings. So where did these almost 30,000 cards go? What is that? Mid 20s, 25,000, 26,000 cards go the last couple months. Where are these going? It makes me think somebody out there somewhere is either a massive Pokemon collector and just wants to grade with tag, or most likely we are going to see, remember a couple months ago, someone out there probably is building some sort of repack product and using tag slabs for the grading of it. Because you look at their sports card numbers, they're nothing. They graded 4,000 sports cards last month. That's like practically nothing. They graded 722 football cards in an entire month. So we will continue to keep our eye on all this stuff. Shout out to Gemrate for the data as always and doing the work that allows us to keep track of this stuff, keep these companies honest, and kind of see what is going on out there in the wider space. Fascinating stuff in the grading space as always. One of my favorite things to kind of look at, break down, and analyze the grading wars. And the grading wars took a crazy turn last week with PSA/collectors basically eliminating their number one chief competitor. Who steps up? Time will tell, and the Gemrate data will show us. That's all I got for you, boys and girls. Catch you on the next one. Peace.